Before the video begins, I'd like to mention that I have a Discord channel now. Feel free to join. We can talk about dragons. On to the video! Welcome, guys, to an episode of Sky Wars. So there's something that's been scaring me. Shaking me to my very core. And that is parallel lines. You see, it all goes back years ago when I was learning how to build. I just began to learn how to rotate objects. As in, like, imagine this little bit of land, but rotate it slightly. I don't mean by 90 degrees. But I was learning how to do that. And a lot of it had to do with turning lines. Just rotating a basic line. So you have this, right, straight line. And then you would turn it into something like this. Ow. I can't rotate my screen. Run. I have 13 blocks. I'm dead. What is this game? Nah, I'm alive, sir. I'm very much so alive. You can't stop my life. Nope. No. You're not gonna pull on me. Goodbye. No stopping me. That was way too much effort for a very simple battle. But alright. Anyways, yeah, I was learning how to do that stuff. These guys are teamed. This is going to be a very fun fight. It was just such a simple question I decided to ask myself. What would happen if I had two parallel lines with the third line in the middle of them that determined the length of the other two? Yeah! What a great idea! Okay, sir. You're dead. Yeah, that team did not do anything. Anyways, yeah, that was the question I asked myself. Basically. And what this means is, that middle line, well, it just rotates. That's all it's gonna do, right? And the other two lines, they're going to contract and expand depending on how rotated it is. So if that middle line is 45-degree angle, it's going to be a square. Right, I'll have some sort of image pop up on screen. And if it's 90 degrees, it's just going to be a vertical line. If you make it like closer to 180, the rectangle gets bigger. Well, longer, which is technically bigger, I guess. Goodbye, sir. Thanks for playing. And you know, there's no problem here. All is good. I haven't become severely confused yet, but I had an idea. What happens if I make it 180 degrees, that middle line? Well, that would mean the other two lines are infinite in length, because they're determined by the length of the other. And that middle line, it only stops at the other two lines, right? Otherwise, it'll keep going. So its length is determined by how far apart the x-axis, well, the y-axis is. That's like the height, right? So that's part of what determines length and its angle. Those are the two things that determine how long this line is going to be. And the distance apart for those two lines, they don't really matter. That's not really what's going to change it much. It's the angle that it's been rotated at. That's what's going to change this. And 180 degrees means it never reaches the other lines. It's parallel. It's just another parallel line. And so far, things haven't gone too confusing for me, but then I thought, wait a second. There's a little bit of a line here. I'll probably like highlight in red. Hopefully there's an image on screen. If there's not, that's going to be extremely embarrassing. But you see, that line in the middle should be able to hit the points on here, but it doesn't. Why? Because if it ever did, it would just keep going, and then it would hit one of the lines, either the top or the bottom line. So it can't ever hit here. So what did I do? I just imagined a curve way back then. An imaginary curve that it somehow gets across, but we don't know it. Wow, they both... Poor guys, I feel bad for that. That always sucks. Anyway, so... that's all I did. I just imagined there was some sort of curve that we don't know about. But then everything changed. Everything changed. And oh my goodness, did it confuse me a lot. I don't like this. Wait, I live. Victory? So, what changed? Well, I learned something. And I learned something about parallel lines. And it's what makes me fear them. Parallel lines. They're a pretty simple thing. Part of it is they never meet on the planar geometry, right? They'll intersect on, like, curved geometry, so, like, around a sphere, they'll meet there. Parallel lines, yeah, on a sphere, they'll meet up. But not on, like... Oh, wait, you weren't supposed to live and stuff. That's kind of awkward. Awkward. Alright, there you go. I'm not gonna cross. Anyways... But this is a plane, and parallel lines shouldn't meet, but they do. They converge. At the end of infinity, parallel lines converge. So this brings us back to the question I asked. What was that area that it never met? Well, actually, they all meet. Every point there meets. They're all at the same place. They all converge at infinity. That is just weird to me, because you can draw 100 other imaginary lines, but I guess, it's not a satisfying answer, but it works. Now, I'm gonna get knocked off and stuff, and I'm not happy about it. Run. No. You stay away. You stay away. Oh, I'm doing bad. I'm not even turning my screen. But it doesn't matter, because I'm too good at this. But what I wasn't good at was understanding this whole idea. Sure, it solved the problem, but it spawned a lot more problems. But I stopped thinking about it for a while. Months and months went by, and then eventually I began to think about the Phantom Toll Booth. More specifically, Mathland, and even more specifically, the staircase in Mathland. You see, the staircase in Mathland isn't an ordinary staircase. It's an infinite one. It goes on forever and ever. It's all the whole numbers in infinity, probably. I don't remember too much about it. It's just that. But there was something I thought about then. Thinking back on this problem. Well, you see, those walls, I can just say they're parallel. So I reimagined the staircase. Let's say those walls, they're 1 meter apart. Oh gosh. Well, you see, we could have said back in my original example that those lines were 1 meter apart. Yeah, I think you're about to see what I'm going to do here. We're gonna say that those walls converge. I missed so many of those shots. I am so bad at this. Whatever. So at infinity, those walls, which are 1 meter apart constantly, converge. Yeah, you think you want this? You think you want this? No, you don't. You have no armor. You don't want this. Goodbye, sir. That is just weird to think about. Those walls converging? They're walls. They don't converge. Ever. You see, I have water and I don't... Oh, I guess you do. Oh, how sad. He picked up the lava. Oh no! You got away! But anyways, this meant something for me. there's something wrong with it. So I was trying to think of solutions of why this could ever be a thing. And I came to some ideas like, maybe a meter isn't exactly the same thing, and I'm thinking about it wrong. You see, maybe someone who's in the hallway would measure it as a meter, but in actuality, you could actually see it's just a single point. And maybe it's slowly shrinking there. So, like, halfway in infinity, you'd say it's half a meter, but you grab measuring tape, and it's actually a meter. Something like that. It doesn't make too much sense, but that was the best idea I had for it at the time. And I kept thinking about it and thinking about it. And I still think about it. I still do. I don't have a complete answer for it. I don't think I ever will. It's more of a paradox anyway, so it's not like I'm going to. Ba-ba-da-ba-ba-ba-da. Ba-ba-da-ba. Ba-ba-da. Goodbye. But, I somewhat lost my train of thought. Yes, parallel lines. Ow, that hurts so much. Oh, I'm off the map. But anyways, there were some other perspectives I had on it, like a being that is infinitely large, able to see the whole thing, and has perfectly precise vision, and ignoring how light works. Maybe there would be a different way to observe it, and then they would be able to observe both ends. It didn't make a lot of sense, but it was just another way of thinking about it. But so far, things haven't gone too bad, actually. Also, I think I'm constantly turning away from the microphone. I have no idea. I don't want you crossing over to me. Get denied. There's players over here, but, it gets worse. You see, I like to think physics takes it first, so maybe it doesn't converge in that example. But let's imagine something else. Fractals. Yes, fractals are something enjoyable to think about. And some of them have lots of parallel lines. Also, that's part of the rules. All those things are parallel. Well, that could mean that we could match up all those parallel lines together. Say that they converge. Oh gosh. What happens if we just imagine parallel lines on any object? Then at the ends of them they converge? No knocking me off. I expected that to be a double crit and that one as well. Okay, I'm fine. Anyway, so like, we could imagine parallel lines on any object, and then say that, haha, they converge at infinity at some point. Your object that is getting increasingly larger, what a sentence. Your object that is getting larger constantly at an exponential rate, well, it actually converges at 0. That doesn't make sense at all. No. Nah. I don't like this idea of being in between a bunch of people. And you missed the jump. Congratulations, sir. Alright, so anyways, that just was even weirder to think about. And then I had somewhat of a solution. And this is where the story becomes less terrifying, where the fear can start to dissolve. You sacrificed yourself to hit me into nothing. What a Chad. I respect that man. He died doing what he loved. Being a nuisance. It was his last breath. Ba-ba-da-ba-ba-ba-da-ba, ba-ba-da-ba. Okay. I think I might be safe from you. Crossing. You weren't supposed to turn around. Nah, no. I have a solution for this, sir. It's called death. Thank you. I hit that man so far. What? I need some sort of projectile. I have eggs. You are going to fall. That's your destiny. Thank you. Anyway, so I came up with somewhat of a solution. In certain scenarios,
this line converging isn't correct. Those lines don't converge in certain situations. When it's some sort of just to visualize, yeah, it can work. But in actuality, if it's represented as a physical thing, like I was saying, when it's represented as a physical thing, the line shouldn't converge. But when you're doing like some sort of advanced math, where it's all about just using it for a visual, and it helps know where numbers will line up or whatever, something like that, then it's useful. And then, yeah, sure, the lines can converge. But the second you're trying to make it for something physical, I think that's not correct to assume that those lines converge. Unless under certain circumstances. I can't hit any of these, and I can't sprint? Wow. I'm just getting scammed, man. Sprint randomly doesn't work. Why? Whatever. Anyway, so that's what I have to say is, like, if it's something you can, and I mean lots of these things don't actually exist, right? But if you can say, theoretically just have as a physical thing for, like, just saying it could be physical, right? That's what I mean. With some exceptions to the rule, then no, it won't converge. But if you're doing other types of advanced stuff, sure, maybe. That would make sense. So, for the beginning example of that rotating line, sure, it actually works if those lines converge. And if you're... What? Scam. No, you do not. You don't get to mess with me. What? Okay,
that was strange. Anyways.
For the original example, though, it works. It makes sense for them to converge, actually. And it's not exactly something I'm representing physically, even though I'd use it to build physical things in Minecraft. It's not physical. What are you trying to do, sir? Fine, I'll make a bridge for you. Here's your bridge. Here's your happy little bridge with your happy little tree and your happy little island and your happy little sword and your happy little blood. Blood will be spilled. Blood will be spilled. I'm not a fan of you. Do. Oh, I'm not dead. I'm just on the verge of it. Oh, well, this isn't good. This is bad. I can survive this. I have nothing left to say besides subscribe, and I'm dead. That's a reason to subscribe. That's all I have to say about my fears of parallel lines. I did not start another round. What? That's a lie. I didn't start another round. What a scam. Alright, that's all I have to say about parallel lines. You can see why they absolutely terrify me, man. At least these don't go on forever. If they did, oh gosh. And there's a way to say that those lines do go on forever. Whatever. There's a lot more about parallel lines I could have talked about, but I'm going to just spare you guys from that. I'm not that cruel. I'm not that evil. I just have a lot of stuff to say about parallel lines. And now you can see why they're so scary, so terrifying. There's nothing more scary than those parallel lines. They don't make sense. But at least I have some sort of solution. Could it be wrong? Sure. But maybe it's not. And that's what I'm leaning on. Bye.